Welcome to another episode of the Off the Tools podcast. In the last episode, we spoke about the importance of systems. And today, we're going to go a little bit further and we're going to be talking about how automations can help you grow and scale your business. So, hello, Andy. Sorry, I should say hello, Andy. I'm forgetting I've got a co-host.
Morning.
So it's still getting used to having a co-host. So I've got to remember I'm not interviewing him. So today we're talking about automations. Explain automations, Andy. What do we mean by automations? Because to some people that's an alien terminology. I know to us it's not, but for some people listening or watching, they're going to be like, automations. That's like what robots do.
I would probably condense that to something that is set up once and then continues to run in the background to your advantage. So probably the most obvious one is a review collection system. So obviously last week we spoke about ServiceMate and Sales Lion. So to not get too deep into it, we stick to ServiceMate, for example. You can build in a singular automation where once each job is completed within the system itself, it will then request a review from the customer. That is done. I know a lot of guys probably do that manually. So I know a few lads who do that. They'll complete a job and then they'll send a text review request to a customer. Whereas when it's built into an automation, there's no need for you to do that. So I think that's the core of it, really, isn't it? Because you'll forget, you'll be tired. You want to, you're chucking your gear in the van and you just want to get home, that sort of thing. And then one of the big beauties with that, just that on that specific review note, is you can dial in the timing of when it's done, and it will do that consistently. So, for example, you can have it so it goes out at 7 p.m. The day after the job's completed, something like that. So that can allow you to scale your reviews exponentially, really. And we've touched on before about the more jobs you do, the more customers you get. You need to make sure that you get a review from every single one of your customers to scale. And automations are the obviously the easiest way to do it because you're not having to do anything. But also, I would argue the fastest way to do it, because, like we just said, you go miss one or two here and there. And an extra little sprinkling on that, some people probably don't ask the same customer for another review. The automations don't care about that, which is I see as a positive. So, for example, if you've got a customer where they've just got a little niggle, let's say you put a new boiler in, a few months ago, and they've bled a radiator or whatever it might be, and then the pressure's gone, they're not quite sure how to do it. You would put that in as a job on your job management software, go out, have a chat with them, fill the system up, get it running, get it up to temp, stand around for a little bit, have a chat with them. They'll probably be happy with that you've gone out, and then the system will just recognize that as a job and send another automation for a re-request. Most people will probably leave you another review. Whereas I think a lot of guys think, oh no, I've already asked, they've already left me a review. And this touches a little bit on looking at the systems and the automations as sort of part of the business. In some ways, kind of an entity of the business. Like we've said about people in the office are less sort of emotionally invested in like a pricing structure. So when someone brings them for a price, they're not going to be tentative the way that the owner would be. And I feel like automations are like that. They don't care that you've already been to that customer earlier in the year.
There's no emotion, is there, when it's a computer sort of dealing with it? the biggest thing for me is like the human error. Not human error is probably the wrong word, but I think you mentioned it a few minutes ago. Like, you know, people forget if you're doing it manually, you genuinely, you know, you've had a busy day, you rush home, life's busy at home, and then before you know it, a few weeks have gone by and you haven't sent out any review requests. And in today's world, like, reviews are the lifeblood of a business that wants to grow. You know, if you've been in business 45 years, you know, and you're not too fussed, you're just sort of ticking over, then yeah, I understand you don't probably necessarily need reviews as much as someone like Andy, for example, who's actively growing, actively scaling, you know, and is a newer business than these more established 20, 30-year-old businesses. And once you build an automation, if you build it right, it should just run on autopilot. So that just not only gives some consistency to the business, so the customers are experiencing a similar experience time in, time out, it just compounds. You know, like my review collection automation has been processed over 10,000 times. So you imagine, even if it took 10 seconds, right, to send that review request, if you did it manually, which it would take longer, you know, to find the message, send it, copy, paste, whatever. 10,000 plus times. I can't even do the maths. I don't know how many hours that would physically equate to, or how many days or months or whatever it would be. But, you know, it's ridiculous. And that's just one automation. And you compound that, then you start building other automations. So we'll focus a bit on reviews because we're talking about it now, but automations isn't just about that. It can be for following up customers, like chasing quotes. It can be for marketing. It can be for chasing invoices. It can be for upselling. You know, the world's your oyster with automations, isn't it?
Yeah. How many lads send a quote and then leave it be?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, so we've talked about a software called Quotient that we're both really big fans of. And within that software itself, you can build an automation. So we have set to 48 hours within that software for when we send a quote for something a bit bigger. And if it's a smaller job, it'll be 24 hours. So again, that's just done. You don't have to forget about it. The software will just give them a little nudge. Have you had a look at your quotes? Obviously, you can build this out yourself, but have you had a look at your quote? If you got any questions, it can be as simple as that. I dread to think how much work has been lost from lads who don't follow up, whether because they're too busy or the you know, distracted.
Some people see it following up on a quote. To me, is a no-brainer. You know, you're just being polite, just making sure that they've got it, asking if they've got any questions. But a lot of people that I've spoke to over the years say, "Oh, I don't follow up people. I'm not desperate. I'm not chasing these people for the work." What's your views on that mindset?
I think I got a bit of this from you, to be fair, combined with my own mindset on it. And statistically, far less people moan about being pestered than do. Is that right way around? We don't get that many people who moan about pushing. Most of them are grateful that you followed up, or they appreciate, oh, I forgot about that. Oh, thanks, yeah. I was meant to give you a ring back today, but I forgot, whatever it might be. Most people who are looking for that work in this day and age prefer to be chased for it, because we're all busy, aren't we now? You know, even your customers are busy, even though they've requested the work. Your customers are busy and they get distracted and they forget about it. They go, oh shit, that quote, I was meant to look at that. So yeah, was it, you always say better to ask for forgiveness kind of thing on it. And if you don't chase up, someone else probably will.
And it's not even like a prime example. Last week I took my son's car. It's got a clutch problem. Took it to a garage, I had a look, they gave me a price, and I've just been busy, you know. That he's done a manual follow-up. He's chased me up this morning manually, but it's reminded me, oh sugar, yeah, I need to get that booked in. So sometimes, in a lot of cases, It's not that the customer isn't ready to make a decision. It's just that life's just got in the way. They're just busy. Other things have happened. So giving them that nudge, and following them up just pushes it down the line. So obviously in that example, the guys had to write that message out to me this morning, right? Which is better than not following up at all, of course. But how much better would it be if that was on autopilot? So that after 3 days, 5 days, whatever it is, whatever time frame you want, it just sent out a nice little message, whether it's on email, whether it's on WhatsApp, whether it be a text message. You can even go further, and you can record voicemails and send voicemail drops out. And there's all fancy stuff you can do with technology and with building these automations. But it's just a no-brainer to me. It's like I couldn't imagine not just following up. And the same with the reviews. To circle back a little bit, some of the guys I've worked with over the years, they asked to turn the review collection off because they've had 1 or 2 customers moan about being asked for a review. And it blows my mind every time someone brings this up to me, because you can't make rash decisions by turning off like a system or an automation based on a handful of customers. If the majority are either ignoring it, because most people, if they don't want to leave you a review, they're just going to ignore it. If they don't want to follow, if they don't want to accept your quote, they're just going to ignore it. But if the odd few make a comment, you can't stop at every dog that barks at you, can you? Otherwise you'll never get anywhere. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's something I've spoke with my office manager about, because she's had a few people say that they get too many automations. But again, it's such a small amount of people. Like, we had one person say they didn't actually go with us because we sent too many automated messages. But that's one person from the thousands. The flip side of that is obviously it's harder to track the metrics, but how many people have we managed to secure the work for because we've stayed on point with it? You know what I mean? That's probably in the thousands. So it's like you say, whereas I think some of the sole trader lads with a slightly more delicate approach probably think, oh no, I've had a couple of bad responses from that, I want to turn that off. But and we, just to circle again back to the reviews, there was a post on Gas Chat, I think yesterday, a guy looking to go on his own, just offered a little bit of free advice, and one of those was to make sure you invest in marketing and scale your reviews, because you cannot, as we said last week, you cannot grow a business through a trade business through word of mouth anymore. It just won't work. You can't do it because, and some people will probably challenge that and say, oh yeah, you can. I would say you can't. You actually can't anymore, because you will not be able to acquire enough customers at speed to offset inflation.
Yeah,
it's probably an interesting thing to discuss in a different time. But if you're trying to scale just through word of mouth, like we've said, to offset inflation, you need a continuing stream of fresh customers who are more in line with your ever increasing pricing structure. And that's, how many lads say, I don't want to increase my prices because I'll lose my customers. And that's why we say you need your new ones. So those reviews form your new word of mouth. And that's usually the first thing that people see from a new customer perspective. We've said before, our business is quite expensive compared to others, but yet using automations, we're almost at 1,000 reviews in, I think is it about 18 months since we implemented?
Yeah, I think we worked it out last time. Yeah, it was about that sort of time frame where it implemented, wasn't it?
Which, 1,000 reviews is wild when you think about it. And just to delve into that a little bit more, there is things that you can get that also customers can leave multiple reviews as well across different platforms, or you can ask multiple times. So you can really leverage the amount of reviews that you get by if somebody leaves a positive review, you could then have an automation set up so that they give those particular customers another little nudge to say, I really appreciate that last review, leaving us one. Would you mind leaving us another one on this one? So to give that a slightly better context, for those who don't know what Which Trusted Traders is like, it's quite a challenging platform to scale your reviews on. I believe they've made it a little bit easier, but it used to be very, very difficult because what they do is they vet the customer. So when someone leaves a review, which then reach out and make sure it's a genuine review. And obviously, there's a lot of talk about these like blag reviews you can get on Google and stuff like that, and then you can pay someone on the other side of the world an amount of money and they'll leave you some reviews. That is, you cannot do that with Which because they vet every single customer individually. So with that is you need to really try and push a platform like that. So we have that in place where when someone's left a review on one of the other regular platforms, let's call it, then we reach out. We built an automation, didn't we? We reach out and say, I really appreciate that review. Could you leave one on Which as well? This is a special platform for whatever reason. But again, that was built out as a pure automation, so we haven't had to touch that. And that scaled exponentially just off the back of that automation that we built out.
Yeah. And in today's world, you know, the word of mouth is, you know, I'm not demonizing word of mouth. Word of mouth will always have a place. But if you're serious about growing and doing better, then you've got to be on multiple platforms. You've got to be collecting reviews as regularly as possible. And this talk isn't just about reviews. We're just using reviews as the example because it is the most simplest one and probably one of the most important. I'd say probably is the most important because without that collection of reviews, you're not building trust, which means that you can't raise your prices as easy. You can't.
I'm going to challenge you on that. Actually, I'm going to say I actually don't think you can build a trade business from word of mouth anymore.
Not if you're starting out. No. I think you can obviously if you're already established,
keep it going.
Yeah, you can keep going, can't you? But yeah, to be honest, I'd agree. I'd agree there because it is just the way of the world, you know. Like we're buying a new TV for the lounge at the minute, and the first thing I do is look at the reviews, see what actual people are saying. Yeah, you know, you're always going to get the idiot. Like one of the reviews yesterday weren't even about the TV that I was looking at. It was because it had GB News built into it, and the guy who didn't like that the TV had GB News on it. You know, so you've got, you know, you're always going to get these numpties that will leave not so nice reviews. But again, no, I'm gonna rewind that for you. So some people are scared of online reviews because they're scared that customers are going to leave them a bad one. And I understand the fear of getting a bad review. But the more reviews you get, the less you care because the less impact it has. If you've got 10 reviews on Google and some numpty puts on a review because you fix their boiler, but then 6 months later something else went wrong and they got the they didn't want to pay, blah blah blah. You know the story. Then it affects you because it's 11 out of 11 reviews, 9 only 10 are good, and it messes up with a star rating. When you've got hundreds, if not thousands, of reviews, the odd numpty doesn't matter. You know, and they lose the power, don't they? The customer then, because now, if a customer tries to like hold me over the barrel and say, "Oh, we'll leave a bad review," I'm like, "Okay, if that's what you want to do, leave us a bad review," because ultimately, 1 or 2 bad reviews amongst thousands isn't really going to touch me. You know,
that's a really, really good point. That, and we was talking about that in the group the other day, wasn't we? One of our groups, and that, in my opinion, counteracts that fear that so many guys have with trying to get reviews en masse. I think a lot of guys want to sort of hand pick the customers, don't they? They were really nice. I had a really good chat with them. I'll ask them for a review. But when we get the odd random, generally it's usually a blag review. So it's when people haven't sort of read the job notes properly, or whatever reason, and maybe people have an unrealistic expectation of an outcome. So let's say, for example, a customer books in a boiler breakdown, but doesn't quite understand the concept of it, despite the girls explaining on the phone, despite having automations, which we'll come back to that, different automations in a minute. And as a result, they may perhaps expected the boiler to be fixed rather than a full diagnostics report, what they actually get from it, because they only see not working boiler, they don't see the journey in between. But in those scenarios now, while one of the girls in the office will reach out and explain, like, this is what's done, we won't even bother trying to chase the platform to get it taken down anymore, because they were gaining them at such a rate, it just doesn't matter. And like you say, they always look odd and out of place anyway. When you're a good company, like, you know, like our checker trade for November has had, like, for example, 70 good reviews and 0 review because of that reason. He said, well, they came out, they didn't fix my boiler. So, but we came out and told you what was wrong with it, diagnostics, blah, blah, blah. Point being is there's just no point when you're leveraging the automations to grow the reviews en masse. You don't have to worry about that anymore, do you? You just let it go. We get washed away. And I would argue if you've got 1,000 reviews and they're all 5-star, then some people
that's suspect in the first place, isn't it?
So that, but yeah, just to say about the fear behind a lot of lads from not getting them, that's absolutely holding them back, like 100%. And you know, we know lads ourselves who've tried that technique of trying to vet the customer to see if the experience was good first before they then ask for a review, and you're just hindering yourself too much. Like, because even if you've got 1,000 reviews and your average rating is 4.6, people will see more value in that, in my opinion, than if you've got 25-star reviews.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something. And yeah, automations are the secret sauce to doing it. I'm not saying it's impossible. Again, spoke about my best mate, successful electrical business, and he does everything manually, but he's had time in the game, and he says himself, if he was to start tomorrow, he knows he would have to automate everything to the max and do things in a bit more of a modern way. Like you say, when you're established, you can kind of keep things going. But again, that's if you only want to keep things going. If you're already established and you want to kick it up a notch, you know, we spoke about lads who've been doing it 20 years and they're okay, but then proof in the pudding, when you overtake them after only a couple of years, then you, well, actually, well, how have you done it? And automations are, I would probably say, the main reason behind the scale of growth, along with the marketing, which I would say they're intrinsic then, aren't they? Like, there's no point in doing loads of marketing and drawing in loads of customers if you're not going to leverage them with something like reviews. And then to come off the reviews subject slightly, one of the biggest sort of issues that customers raise is not being kept in the loop when they book a tradesman. So after the obvious one that you often say to guys, just turning up makes you better than a lot of guys, which is very, very true. But to step it up a notch, keeping them in the loop is, in my opinion, absolutely a must these days, because, you know, the Amazon Prime mindset, the Uber taxi ordering mindset, people know, and ringing someone up and them saying, I can probably get to you next week, used to be allowed. It used to be the norm, to be fair.
But still is for a lot of people, unfortunately.
Which again, why, if you're implementing something like this, the automations and the software and things like that, what you'll find is your customer retention will go off the chart. You might be the best tradesman in the world, but if you're doing things in that way, I'll get to you next week. If that's not enough for someone and someone wants a bit more of a solid answer than that, and they ring through to a company that's using software and as a result automations, and they get that booking confirmation and the booking reminder, the chances are you've probably lost that customer. And regardless of how good you are as a tradesman, it just isn't enough anymore. You know what I mean? We have touched
Being
on
a good tradesman is not how you grow a business, is it? Being a good tradesman will give you a solid income, steady, but it's not what's going to take you to being an actual business that is expanding, growing, making, better money than everybody else. And it's I think that's one of the big shifts in people that we work with, is when they realize, yes, you have to be technical, of course, of course you need that technical knowledge, but like we see it all the time, don't we? Lads going on training courses. They're going on training courses to get better as an engineer, which is part of the journey.
I
understand that.
Yeah.
But but what they don't do on maths is invest in training on how to be a better businessman, and invest in training on software and services and coaching and everything else. And ultimately, that is the difference, isn't it? That's the difference to growing a business or basically just building a job.
I think as well, there's probably less really, really good tradesmen out there. And as a result, they would be the guys that would probably better going working for a company and holding a senior position in that company. Yeah. So, you know what I mean? You let's say you're a guy, maybe like mid-50s, and you've done this for a long, long time. That probably puts you in a worse position from the business perspective, because you'll have likely spent all that time becoming a shit hot tradesman. Can probably fix a boiler with your eyes shut. But you'll have come from a time where there wasn't the necessity for what we've just been talking about today, and you're probably better than 99.9% of the other lads in the game. Yeah. And that person in particular, in the right company, would probably be on the 50 grand a year. We'll have a position, we'll have a space for someone like that in the future, the 50 grand a year, 50 odd grand a year senior engineer kind of role, because the focus has been lasered on being that good engineer, and they'll be the guy that is going out fixing a boiler in 20 minutes because they're so fucking good, and then going out to give 20 minutes. And it's like that's to extend what you're saying becomes counterproductive, doesn't it? We've touched on this before. We're going off a little bit of a tangent, but that's what we do.
We'll bring it back in a minute, don't worry.
The better the tradesman you are, generally, statistically, the worse business owner you become. Admittedly, there's always variables, but you've only got so much learning capacity. And if you keep funneling that down, like you said, into becoming a better and better engineer, you're going to be less headspace and less time to focus on the back end side of things. We've said before, we're relatively average tradesmen, and as a result, that's allowed for that little bit of extra headspace. And if you're always the best engineer in the business, let's say you start taking on more guys, I would say that becomes a problem in itself. This is more of a tangent. This is one for another podcast, but because then you become that role we've just been chatting about. And what happens then? So you gotta just stopping where you are. There's a statement of that will be contested, I'm sure, but stop where you are in your development journey as an engineer or tradesman, whatever the industry you're in, and put your focus onto the business side of things, and don't get any better really as a tradesman. But anyway, let's bring it back.
Right, let's bring it back to automations.
Booking confirmations, booking reminders. We were segueing into, wasn't we?
Yeah. So what I'd like to just share with some of the people that are going to be watching and listening this is, what are some of the other automations? Obviously, we spoke a lot about reviews. You've obviously touched on booking reminders and booking confirmations. So for those that that again, to some people, they're like, well, I just ring the customer, book it in, and then they see me 3 days later, and that's it. So if you're using the right system and you can build automations within that system, you can make things like booking confirmations, booking reminders happen on autopilot. So again, we don't want to add manual interventions into your business. That's the point of systems and automations, is to do things that happen just on autopilot. So I'll use Andy's business as an example, similar to mine in regards to the automations in place. But phone call comes in, office lady or office person answers the phone, books the job in. Okay, obviously that part is a manual process. Obviously, we do offer online booking. I believe Andy does online booking too. So you can sort of automate that booking part. But let's just go traditional. Customer phones up, books in the job. Within 20 seconds, they're going to get a confirmation to confirm what's been booked in. So they're going to see what time, date, etc. that the job's booked in. Then there's automations built in that will remind that customer. So it will send out reminders 24 hours before that someone's coming. Then with the software that we both use, which is ServiceMate, and I know other softwares do it, but with ServiceMate, when the engineer is actually en route to that customer, this is on autopilot. It will send them a tracking link to track the engineer, similar to Uber. If you've ever used Uber or one of these delivery apps where you track your food coming to you, it works in exactly the same principle. So the customer is being kept up to date and a live status on when you're actually going to arrive at the property. What other automations do you feel are important in this day and age?
I would say they're the ones we spoke about are the big three, really, aren't they? So the review collection, the quote follow-up, and then the booking related confirmations. Yeah. I would say the booking stuff, the booking related automations and the reminders feed into the review collection, because we generally find, other than the office, the feedback we get from the girls in the office, and we have got another podcast scheduled in about scaling and office side of stuff, but that's the next thing that people mention in a lot of the reviews. So obviously the office staff are brilliant, that's one thing, but the next thing, the consistent feedback we get is being kept in the loop.
Communication,
and that's too hard to do from a manual process. It's too hard. Plenty of lads that do it, and it's doable, but it adds so much more effort to your day. Like you say, ServiceMate, as soon as that job's booked in, it kicks off, doesn't it? So they get an email. Another thing to delve a little bit into the more clever stuff with the booking confirmations via ServiceMate is you can select your booking windows, can't you? How it gives the arrival time. So you can do, an hour, 2 hours. We have ours. We've just kicked ours up to 4 hours because of the time of year. But generally we have it on 3, which means if you book a job in for 10 o'clock, it'll say between 8:30 and 11:30, because it will splay out 90 minutes either side. And within that automation, it tells them that this is your arrival window for the engineer. And people really appreciate that, because they know where they're at with it, don't they? They go,
it means that they can pop out, they can do the school run or whatever it might be. Just makes life easier, doesn't it? And and
then the automation, I would say this is a true automation in some ways, and probably automation at its finest for the lads that might be interested in software, is the notification to tell the customer the engineer's on the way. Now, this is something that people give the most feedback on, even as good as the booking link is. And it also then is an internal beneficial automation, if that's the right way of saying it, because most vans generally have CarPlay nowadays, Apple CarPlay, or you've bought something that's added it to your van. In the van, plug your phone in, ServiceMate comes up on Apple CarPlay. You can do it on your phone or Apple CarPlay. because it integrates into maps, you can click navigate to job, and that's something you do anyway. You'd put the postcode into your maps, but you just click navigate to job. It brings the maps up, tells you what to do to get there, and does your mapping side of things. But then it behind the scenes texts the customer and says, Wayne's on his way. He'll be with you in 25 minutes, whatever it is. And then they can track the engineer as well. That to me is something that customers, even though it's a very basic thing, and like you say, customers are experiencing that with Amazon, with Uber,
but they're not experiencing it with Dave the plumber down the road, and John the chippy that's coming round to do the doors or whatever, you know. And another note on these automations, right? And it all feeds into everything. So like people always ask me, what can I do to grow my business? And there's never one answer. Everything we're going to be discussing on this show and over time, you have to be doing it all. But one of the powerful things that automations do is they build rapport and trust. And when you build rapport and trust with people, you're going to win more work. You're going to be able to charge stronger because they have that level of trust and rapport with you. And on top of that, and this is going to be a whole different podcast, it's going to have to be because we wouldn't have the time to discuss it now. But what the content that you put in to these automations is so important, because Andy, you sell a lot of service plans, right? Pretty much on every automation, you're mentioning service plans, aren't you? You're leaving little breadcrumbs, which is what I call it, along the way. So when that customer gets that booking confirmation, somewhere in that email or text, there's going to be a mention, did you know that we offer service plans? When the customer gets the on-way text, they're going to be mentioning the service plans or whatever upsell it is that you might do as a business. Like I said, that's going to need a whole subject on like content, upselling and everything. But it is so powerful. Communication is, in today's world, is one of the most easiest things to automate, isn't it? Because, you know, everybody uses email, everybody uses text. Back in the day when it was just a phone call, it was difficult to not difficult, but it was time consuming. You'd have to physically get on the phone, ring that customer. Yeah, hi, Mrs. Jones, we're on our way, you know, we'll be with you soon, etc., etc. Whereas that is gone now. You don't need that. And then we start getting down the subject of AI, which is again going to be probably the next episode, I would imagine. So yeah, I'm not even gonna open that Pandora's box on AI. But have you got any thoughts, any other message, any other things that you wanted to talk about on automations at the minute?
No, I think this is probably a good one for, again, let's get some feedback on it. If anyone's got more questions on how they can elevate their business with the use of automations, or as much as it is elevate the business, it's get some of your time back, isn't it? It's free up that personal time. Just reach out. You know, a lot of the guys that are sitting down doing stuff in the evening can all be automated. It can just be like, you know. And one last thing I wanted to mention before we close off on the automation side, it also can be internal, can it? So for example, again, if you're using a job management software like ServiceMate, it allows the on-site payments to be taken. And one of the automations that can be built into ServiceMate and other job management softwares is automatic reconciliation of payments, which is going to reduce the amount of effort you either do manually or you maybe have a bookkeeper doing currently. It literally just, once it takes the payment, it recognizes that it's been taken and then communicates with your accounting software and basically tells it this job's been complete and it's been paid for. So move it on to the next stage, essentially. And that's something that most guys actually do their own account software management, let's call it, of doing most likely manual. So when you can stack your automations, can't you? You know, the automatic, you can even have an automatic payment link go out to request payment, they can pay that, and then behind the scenes it will automatically reconcile.
Automatically, yeah.
So it's
as with everything we're discussing, obviously we're going to be revisiting all of this with further details, with follow-ups after questions and stuff like that. So don't sit here and think that this is the only time we're going to be talking about automations or systems or whatever other episodes you've listened to in the past. We will be revisiting a lot of these subjects to dive a little bit deeper, to refresh, because time changes and systems change and techniques change and strategies change. So don't feel like this is just a one-time discussion, because we will be talking a lot about all different things. But we need you guys involved. We need you to be reaching out. We need you to be asking questions so that we know that we are discussing the right things for the people that are watching and listening. So the email addresses for both of us are on the system, on the screen now. If you're just listening, it's wayne@offthetools.co.uk or andy@offthetools.co.uk. And of course, we're on all the socials. If you're not already part of the free Facebook community, just search Off the Tools Community, and it's a free group that you can join. And obviously in there you can post questions and see what other people are talking about, see what other questions other people have got. So I think we've come to a natural sort of close of this session. Andy, are you done, mate? Right.
Yeah.
Have a good one, guys, and we'll see you on the next one, which is more than likely going to be about AI. Let's go.